The Sleeping City. Part 1. The Town That Slept Too Long. Masonville was a quiet town surrounded by hills and forests. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other. Life in Masonville moved at a slow, peaceful pace. People worked during the day, and by night, the streets were empty, except for a few stray cats. One Thursday morning, something strange happened. The sun rose, but Masonville felt different. Houses looked the same, streets looked the same, but the silence was unusual, even for this small town. Emma, a 17-year-old high school student, woke up feeling odd. She stretched her arms and looked at her bedside clock. It was 7:30 a.m., time to get ready for school. She called out to her mom, "Mom, is breakfast ready?" There was no reply. She walked to the kitchen, expecting to see her mom making pancakes as she always did. The kitchen was empty. Emma searched the house. Her mom wasn't there. Emma thought maybe her mom had gone out early, so she decided to go next door to ask Mrs. Green if she had seen her. Emma knocked on the door. No one answered. She knocked again, louder this time. After a long pause, the door creaked open, and Mrs. Green's grandson, Toby, peeked out. "Toby, where's your grandma?" Emma asked. "She's not here," Toby said softly. "I can't find her anywhere." Emma frowned. "What do you mean? Did she leave a note?" Toby shook his head and showed Emma a small slip of paper. The note had strange words on it. "The world waits for no one, but we will return before the clock stops." Emma stared at the note, confused. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Toby said, his voice shaking. "She was here last night. Now she's gone." Emma ran back home, hoping to find a note in her house too. She searched her room and then her mom's bed. Under the pillow, there it was, a small slip of paper with the same message. Panic spread quickly through Masonville. By 10 a.m., the town square was full of people who had the same story. A father was missing. A neighbor had vanished. Entire families had disappeared. No one knew where they had gone. Each missing person had left behind a note with the same cryptic message. Sheriff Harris tried to calm everyone down. He stood on the steps of the town hall with a megaphone. "We'll figure this out. Please stay calm and stay in town. We'll organize search teams and contact nearby cities for help." Emma joined the crowd with Toby. She saw her classmates, her neighbors, and the shopkeepers from the market. They all looked scared. People were whispering to each other. "What do you think happened?" Toby asked. Emma shook her head. "I don't know. It's like they just vanished." "But how?" Meanwhile, the sheriff's team searched the town. They looked in every house, every alley, and even in the forest surrounding Masonville. There was no sign of the missing people. No footprints, no cars leaving town, nothing. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the note she had found under her mom's pillow. The words made no sense, but they felt important. She wondered if they were a clue. Around midnight, Emma decided to do something. She grabbed a flashlight and her notebook. She wrote down everything she could remember about the past day. When her mom was last seen, what the note said, and who else was missing. As she sat by her window, looking out at the quiet street, she felt a strange sense of unease. She had lived in Masonville her whole life, but now it felt like a different place. A place with secrets she didn't understand. Emma didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. Something bigger was happening, and she was about to find herself right in the middle of it. Part 2. The Silent Investigation. The next morning, Emma woke up early. The sun was shining brightly, but the town still felt heavy with fear. She heard a loud knock on the front door. Quickly, she ran downstairs and opened it. Sheriff Harris stood there with a notebook in his hand. "Good morning, Emma," he said, his voice calm but serious. "We're talking to everyone in town about the missing people. I need to ask you some questions." Emma nodded and let him in. They sat at the kitchen table, and Sheriff Harris opened his notebook. "When was the last time you saw your mother?" he asked. "Last night, around 10 p.m., Emma replied. "She was in her room, reading a book. Everything seemed normal. Did you hear anything unusual during the night? Any sounds or see anything strange?" Emma thought for a moment. "No, it was a normal night. Quiet, like always." The sheriff sighed and closed his notebook. "Thank you, Emma. If you remember anything, no matter how small, let me know." He stood up and walked to the door. "Sheriff," Emma called out before he left, "what do you think happened? Where did they go?" The sheriff paused. He looked tired, as if he had stayed up all night. "I don't know, Emma, but I promise we're doing everything we can to find them." After the sheriff left, Emma decided she couldn't just sit around waiting for answers. She had to do something. She grabbed her bike and rode to the library. If the notes were a clue, maybe she could find out what they meant. The library was empty, except for Mrs. Thompson, the librarian. She was one of the few adults still in town. "Emma, what brings you here?" Mrs. Thompson asked, adjusting her glasses. "I need to look up something," Emma said. She explained about the note under her mom's pillow. Mrs. Thompson frowned. "That's strange. Let me help you." They searched the library's books and old records. Emma looked up phrases like, "The world waits for no one," and "before the clock stops." Hours passed, but they found nothing useful. "Maybe it's not in books," Emma said finally. "Maybe it's something modern, like on the internet." Mrs. Thompson turned on the library's computer. Together, they searched online for anything similar to the message on the notes. After scrolling through countless websites, Emma came across something that caught her attention. It was a forum post from a small town in another part of the country. The post said, 3 years ago, 1/4 of our townspeople disappeared overnight. They left notes under their pillows with strange words. We never found them. Emma's heart raced. Mrs. Thompson, look at this. It's just like what's happening here. Mrs. Thompson leaned closer to the screen. This can't be a coincidence, she said. You should show this to the sheriff. Emma printed the post and tucked it into her backpack. As she got ready to leave, she thanked Mrs. Thompson. Be careful, Emma, Mrs. Thompson said softly. This feels dangerous. Emma nodded and rode her bike to the sheriff's office. When she arrived, she found the office busy with people talking and phones ringing. She waited until the sheriff noticed her. Emma, what is it? He asked, looking surprised to see her. I found something, she said, pulling out the printed forum post. Look at this. It's about another town where people disappeared just like here. The sheriff read the post carefully. His face grew darker with every line. This is disturbing, he said finally. I'll check this out. Thank you, Emma. As Emma left the office, she felt a mix of emotions. She was scared, but also determined to find the truth. She rode her bike around town, thinking about what to do next. By the time she reached the park, the sun was setting. The orange and pink sky reflected in the still pond. She stopped to rest on a bench, but something caught her eye. On the ground near the pond was a small piece of paper. Emma picked it up. It was damp and crumpled, but the words were clear. We see what you cannot. We walk where you will not. A chill swept over her. This wasn't like the other notes. This one felt more personal. It was as if someone had left it there for her to find. Emma stuffed the note into her pocket and hurried home. She locked the door and sat at her desk, spreading out all the notes she had collected. Her mom's note, Toby's grandma's note, and now this new one. They all seemed connected, but how? Emma started writing in her notebook again, trying to piece everything together. That night, Emma barely slept. Every sound outside her window made her jump. She felt like someone was watching her. But when she looked outside, the street was empty. Emma didn't know it yet, but she was closer to the truth than anyone else in Masonville. And the truth was something she could never have imagined. Part 3. A hidden pattern. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling tired. Her sleep had been full of strange dreams. Dreams about shadows moving in the night and whispers calling her name. She shook off the feeling and decided to focus on what she had learned so far. After a quick breakfast, she packed her notebook, the notes, and a flashlight into her backpack. She was determined to search the town for more clues. She started at the park where she had found the second note. The area was quiet, with only a few birds chirping in the trees. Emma walked slowly, scanning the ground for anything unusual. After a few minutes, she noticed something near a bush, a small piece of paper stuck in the branches. Emma pulled it out carefully. It was another note with the same strange handwriting. The path opens when the stars align. What does that even mean? Emma whispered to herself. She added the note to her collection and continued searching. As she walked back toward Main Street, she saw Toby riding his bike. He waved at her and stopped. "Emma, have you found anything new?" Toby asked, his voice full of curiosity. "Yes," Emma said, showing him the new note. "But I don't understand it." Toby read the note and frowned. "Stars align? Do you think it's talking about space or something else?" Emma shrugged. "I don't know. But I think these notes are important. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Maybe we should check the forest," Toby suggested. "A lot of weird things have happened there before." Emma hesitated. The forest was thick and dark, even during the day. People rarely went there, except for hunters and campers. But Toby had a point. It was the perfect place to hide something. "Okay," Emma agreed. "Let's go." The two of them rode their bikes to the edge of the forest and left them by a tree. Emma turned on her flashlight, even though the sun was still out. The trees were so dense that very little light made it through the branches. As they walked deeper into the forest, they found a narrow path. It looked old, with grass and weeds growing over it. "This must lead somewhere," Toby said. They followed the path for what felt like an hour. The forest was eerily quiet, with no sounds of birds or insects. Emma felt like the trees were watching them, their branches reaching out like arms. Finally, they came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was an old wooden shed. The wood was gray and rotting, and the roof looked like it might collapse at any moment. "Do you think anyone lives here?" Toby asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think so," Emma said. "It looks abandoned." They approached the shed cautiously. The door was slightly open, creaking as the wind pushed it. Emma shined her flashlight inside. The shed was empty, except for a table in the center. On the table was a map of Masonville with red circles drawn around certain areas. The park, the school, the library, and the town square. "This is weird," Toby said. "Why are these places marked?" Emma picked up the map and examined it closely. Each circle had a small number written next to it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. "Maybe these are the places where something important happened," Emma said. "But what?" Under the map, they found another note. This one was different from the others. It wasn't cryptic. It was direct. "You are not alone. Look deeper." Emma and Toby exchanged nervous glances. "What does it mean, look deeper?" Toby asked. Emma thought for a moment. Maybe there's something hidden in these places. We should check them out. They decided to start with the park since it was closest. On the way back, they talked about what the numbers on the map could mean. "Do you think it's a sequence?" Toby asked. "Like we have to go to these places in order?" "Maybe," Emma said. "But we won't know until we start looking." When they reached the park, they used the map to find the exact spot that was circled. It led them to a large oak tree near the pond. "What are we looking for?" Toby asked. Something hidden, Emma said, kneeling to examine the ground. She noticed that the dirt near the tree looked different, like it had been disturbed recently. Help me dig, she said. Toby grabbed a stick, and together they dug into the soft earth. After a few minutes, they uncovered a small metal box. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a piece of paper with a strange drawing on it. It looked like a star, but with extra lines and symbols around it. What is this? Toby asked, confused. I don't know, Emma said, studying the drawing. But it looks like some kind of code. They decided to take the drawing back to Emma's house to study it. As they walked back, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. When they reached Emma's house, they spread out all the notes, the map, and the drawing on the table. Okay, Emma said, we have 4 places circled on the map, 3 notes, and now this strange drawing. They have to be connected somehow. But how? Toby asked. And why us? Why are we the ones finding this stuff? Emma didn't have an answer. All she knew was that they couldn't stop now. There was too much at stake. Too many people missing. As they worked late into the night, piecing together the clues, they didn't notice the shadowy figure standing outside the window, watching their every move. Part 4. The Secret Beneath the Surface. The next morning, Emma and Toby woke up early, determined to keep going. They couldn't ignore the feeling that time was running out. The first thing they did was take another look at the strange drawing they had found in the metal box. It looked like a star, but it wasn't any normal star they had seen before. Around it were small symbols, circles, triangles, and lines that didn't make sense. What do you think it means? Toby asked, leaning over the table. I'm not sure, Emma said, tapping her pencil against her notebook, but I think it's some kind of clue. Maybe it connects to the places on the map. Toby pointed at the map. We've already checked the park. What if we go to the next place? The school? Emma nodded. Good idea. Let's go. The school was quiet. It was the weekend, so no one was there except for the janitor, Mr. Clark. Emma and Toby walked through the empty hallways, their footsteps echoing off the walls. It's creepy when no one's here, Toby whispered. Yeah, Emma agreed. She pulled out the map and checked the circled spot. It pointed to the library inside the school. They pushed open the library doors and stepped inside. The air smelled like old books and dust. Rows of shelves stretched out in every direction. Where do we even start? Toby asked, looking overwhelmed. Emma studied the map again. The circle is near the back of the library. Let's check there. They walked past rows of bookshelves until they reached the corner of the library. There was an old bookshelf there, filled with books that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Emma ran her fingers along the spines of the books. Look for anything strange. Something that doesn't belong. Toby began pulling out books, one by one. After a few minutes, he stopped. Wait. Look at this. He held up a thick book with no title on the cover. It was dusty and heavy, and the pages looked yellowed with age. When Emma opened it, she found that the pages were blank. "Why would someone keep an empty book here?" she asked. Toby flipped through the pages. Then, in the middle of the book, they found a folded piece of paper. Emma unfolded it carefully. It was another note. "In the silence, the truth is revealed." "What does that mean?" Toby asked, frowning. Emma stared at the note. "I think it's saying we need to listen. Maybe there's a sound, or something we can't hear unless it's quiet." They looked around the library, but nothing seemed unusual. Then Toby noticed something. "Emma, do you see this?" He pointed to a small hole in the wall behind the bookshelf. "What is it?" Emma asked, crouching down to look. "I think it's a speaker," Toby said. Emma pressed her ear against the hole. At first, she heard nothing. But then, very faintly, she heard a soft humming sound. "There's something playing," Emma said. "But it's so quiet. I can barely hear it." Toby pulled out his phone and used a recording app to amplify the sound. After a few seconds, they could hear it clearly. It was a series of beeps like Morse code. "What's that?" Toby asked. "I think it's a message," Emma said. "But we'll need to decode it." They recorded the sound and left the library, heading back to Emma's house to figure out what the beeps meant. At Emma's house, they played the recording over and over, writing down the beeps in spaces. Emma looked up a Morse code chart online and began decoding the message. After what felt like hours, they had the full message. "Look beneath the square where all gather." "The square where all gather," Toby repeated. "That must mean the town square." Emma nodded. "It makes sense. The town square is one of the places circled on the map. We should check it out next." When they reached the town square, the sun was beginning to set. The square was empty, except for a few pigeons pecking at crumbs on the ground. "Where do we start?" Toby asked. Emma pulled out the map again and pointed to the middle of the square. "Here. It says we need to look beneath the square." They walked to the center of the square, where there was a large stone monument, a statue of the town's founder. At the base of the statue, they noticed something strange. A small metal hatch, almost hidden by dirt and leaves. "This must be it," Emma said, her heart racing. Toby helped her clear away the dirt. The hatch had a handle, but it was locked. "We need a key," Toby said. Emma remembered the first note they had found. "The key lies where the water sleeps." "The fountain," Emma said suddenly. "The fountain in the park. That must be where the key is." They hurried back to the park as darkness fell. The fountain was in the middle of the park, surrounded by benches. Emma and Toby searched the edges of the fountain carefully. Then Toby spotted something shiny in the water, a small key tied to a string. He reached in and pulled it out. "Got it!" They ran back to the town square, the key clutched tightly in Toby's hand. When they reached the hatch, Emma inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The hatch opened with a loud creak, revealing a dark staircase that led underground. "Are we really going down there?" Toby asked, his voice shaking. "We have to," Emma said firmly. "This is the only way to find out what's happening." They grabbed their flashlights and began descending the stairs. The air grew colder with each step, and the walls were damp and covered in moss. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a long tunnel. The walls were lined with strange carvings, symbols like the ones on the drawing they had found in the metal box. "This is really weird," Toby said, shining his flashlight on the carvings. Emma nodded, feeling both scared and excited. They were getting closer to the truth. The tunnel led to a large underground chamber. In the center of the chamber was a circular stone platform, surrounded by candles that had burned out long ago. On the platform was another note. Emma picked it up and read it aloud. "The answer lies within the stars. Only the brave will see." As they stood in the dim light of their flashlights, Emma and Toby realized they were uncovering something far bigger than they had ever imagined. Part 5. The Hidden Truth. Emma and Toby stood in the dark underground chamber, staring at the note in Emma's hands. Her heart was racing. Every clue they had found seemed to lead them deeper into something strange, something bigger than just missing people. "What does it mean?" Toby asked, his voice soft, filled with confusion. "The answer lies within the stars." "What stars? And why is everything so mysterious?" Emma didn't know. She could only feel that the answer was close, just out of reach. She turned the note over, looking for anything more. But there was nothing, just those same strange words. "Let's check the platform," Emma suggested, pointing at the stone circle in the middle of the room. "Maybe the platform is important." Toby nodded, and they both moved toward the stone platform. It was cold to the touch, made of smooth, gray stone. The carvings on the walls around them seemed to get more detailed as they got closer, some looking like stars, others like small animals or shapes that didn't make sense. Emma stepped up to the platform. It was big, like a small table, but flat with a round edge. At first, she thought it was just an old, unused stone. But when she looked closer, she saw that in the middle, there was a small, barely noticeable crack. The crack was just wide enough for her to fit her finger in. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing at the crack. "There's something here." Toby knelt beside her. "Do you think we should try to open it?" Emma nodded. She pressed her finger into the crack, pushing harder. After a moment of pressure, there was a soft click. To their surprise, part of the stone on the platform shifted, sliding away to reveal a small compartment hidden inside. Inside the compartment was a glass vial, with something glowing faintly inside it. "What is that?" Toby asked, his voice filled with wonder. Emma carefully reached for the vial. It felt warm in her hand. The glow inside was soft but bright enough to make her eyes squint. She twisted the lid off the vial and found that it was filled with a fine, glittering powder. It looked like dust, but it shimmered as though it held a secret. This is strange, Emma whispered. What do we do with this? I don't know, but maybe it's important, Toby said, looking around the room. Maybe this is connected to the stars the note talked about. Emma stared at the glowing powder in her hand, a deep feeling growing in her chest. She had a feeling this was the final piece of the puzzle, but what it meant, she didn't understand yet. We need to get out of here, Emma said finally. We need to think. All these clues. Everything leads us here, but we don't have the full answer yet. Toby agreed, and together they carefully placed the vial back in the compartment. They closed the stone platform and slowly began to climb back up the stairs, their minds full of questions. The night was dark by the time they climbed back up into the square. The air felt colder now, as if something had shifted in the town while they were below. The silence around them was even more noticeable. The city, usually alive with noise and chatter, was still. It was as if everyone had forgotten how to speak. What do you think all of this means? Toby asked, looking up at the stars in the sky above. And why does it feel like no one is here? I don't know, Emma said softly. But I feel like we're getting closer. The stars. The note said the answer lies within the stars. Maybe it's connected to the glow in the vial. Toby frowned. So we have this glowing powder. But where do we put it? Maybe the town square. Emma looked back at the town square, then back at the stars above. There was something she couldn't put her finger on. Something in the sky seemed to be watching them. She had the feeling that the answer wasn't just on the ground. Maybe the stars were more than just a symbol. Maybe they were real. Let's go back to the fountain, Emma said. There might be something there we missed. They rushed back to the fountain, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The fountain was still and quiet, the water barely moving. It looked the same as it had when they first visited it, but something was different now. The air felt thick, charged with an energy they couldn't understand. As they approached the fountain, Emma stopped. She stared at the water for a long moment, then she felt it. A pull, a tug in the air. It was almost as if something was calling to them. Toby, look, Emma said, pointing to the water. Do you see that? Toby squinted at the water. What is it? Emma stepped forward and knelt by the edge of the fountain. The water was still, but now, in the middle of the fountain, she could see something faint. A pattern, moving under the surface like the glow of stars. Slowly, Emma reached her hand into the water. As soon as her fingers touched the surface, the glow grew stronger. A quiet hum filled the air, almost like the beeps from the underground chamber. It was the same sound, but louder now. Toby, the powder, Emma said, remembering. We have to put it in the water. Toby quickly grabbed the vial from his bag and handed it to Emma. She poured the glowing powder into the water. The moment the powder touched the surface, the water began to ripple. The glow spread quickly through the fountain, lighting up the entire square in soft, shining waves. Then, the hum grew louder, and suddenly, a figure appeared. It was not a person, but a shadowy figure, standing above the fountain, bathed in the soft glow of the water. The figure spoke in a voice that was both calm and powerful. "You have unlocked the first truth." Emma and Toby stared, speechless. The figure began to fade slowly, like mist dissolving in the air. "You have unlocked the first truth," the figure repeated. "The town is not lost. The people are not gone. They are waiting." With that, the figure vanished, and the glow in the water faded. Emma turned to Toby, her heart pounding. "What does that mean?" "The people are waiting." "Waiting for what?" "I don't know," Toby said, his voice shaky. "But it sounds like the mystery is far from over." Emma nodded. They had just taken another step closer to the truth, but there were still so many questions. The town was still silent, and the missing people had not yet returned. What were they waiting for? And why was everything tied to the stars? As the night grew colder, Emma and Toby knew they couldn't stop now. They had to keep going. The truth was close, and they were getting closer with every new clue. Emma took a deep breath, looking at the empty town around them. She didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The answer was hidden somewhere in the stars, and they were going to find it. Part 6. The Final Revelation. The air was thick with anticipation as Emma and Toby stood in the quiet town square, their minds racing with thoughts of the mysterious figure, the glowing powder, and the strange words they had heard. The figure had said, "The town is not lost. The people are not gone. They are waiting, but for what?" What did it all mean? Toby paced back and forth, his eyes darting from the fountain to the empty streets. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion. "We've unlocked some kind of secret, but there's still no one here. Where are the people? And what does waiting mean?" Emma stood still, her thoughts swirling. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were so close to uncovering the truth. There had to be a connection between the stars, the glowing powder, and the people who had disappeared. But what was it? She looked up at the sky, searching for answers. "We need to go back to the platform," Emma said, her voice firm. "The stars. The note said the answer lies within the stars. The figure told us the people are waiting. Maybe we need to look at the stars again. Maybe they'll show us where the people are." Toby nodded. "You're right. Let's go. We have to figure this out." The night was dark as they made their way back to the underground chamber. The stone path felt colder now, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. Emma led the way, her mind focused on the task ahead. They had to find the final piece of the puzzle. They had to understand what the stars were trying to tell them. When they reached the chamber, Emma felt a strange energy in the air. It was as if the room was alive, waiting for them to take the next step. The stone platform was still in the middle of the room, its surface smooth and cold. The carvings on the walls seemed to glow faintly, just like the water in the fountain had glowed earlier. Emma placed her hand on the platform, feeling the warmth that had returned. "This is it," she said quietly. "We have to do something with the stars. I think the platform is the key." Toby stood beside her, looking up at the walls. The carvings on the walls looked like stars. Some of them were simple, others were more detailed, but all of them were pointing toward the center of the room, where the platform stood. "I think the stars are telling us where to look," Toby said. "Maybe if we place the powder here, it will do something." Emma nodded. She was beginning to feel a sense of purpose, as if the mystery was finally starting to unravel. She took the vial from her bag and opened it, pouring the glittering powder onto the platform. The moment the powder touched the stone, a soft light began to shine from the carvings on the walls. The light grew stronger and stronger, until the entire room was glowing brightly, just like the stars in the sky. The glow in the room seemed to reach a peak. Then suddenly, the walls started to move. The carvings on the walls shifted, rearranging themselves, forming new shapes and patterns. Emma and Toby stepped back, watching in awe as the stone walls began to change. Then, the room fell silent. The light faded, and in the center of the room, a new image appeared. It was a doorway, carved into the stone. The doorway shimmered with a soft light, as if it was alive, waiting for someone to step through it. Emma's heart raced as she looked at Toby. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the final step. We have to go through that doorway." Toby nodded, his face pale. "But what if we don't come back?" "We have no choice," Emma said, her voice determined. "We have to find the people. We have to understand what's going on." Together, they stepped toward the doorway. As they got closer, Emma could feel the air shift. It was as if the very atmosphere was changing, becoming lighter, more alive. She could hear a soft sound, like the whisper of wind, coming from beyond the doorway. When they crossed the threshold, everything around them changed. The world they had known, the empty town, the dark streets, disappeared. They found themselves in a beautiful place, bathed in soft, golden light. The sky above them was full of stars, more than they had ever seen before. The air was fresh and warm, and the ground beneath their feet felt soft and welcoming. In front of them, standing like a dream, were the people of the town. They were smiling, looking peaceful and calm, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The people of the town were not gone at all. They had been here in this place all along. Emma and Toby stood there, amazed, as the people slowly turned to face them. Among the crowd, Emma saw familiar faces, people she knew from the town. There was Mrs. Lawson, the librarian, and Mr. Richards, the baker. They were all here, smiling, as if nothing had changed. The leader of the group, an elderly woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome," she said, her voice soft and welcoming. "You have finally come. We have been waiting for you." Emma was speechless. Where are we? What is this place? And why did the town disappear? The elderly woman smiled gently. This place is where we all come when the time is right. The town didn't disappear. It just moved. We cannot stay in the same place forever. The stars are our guides, and they show us when it's time to leave and when it's time to wait. Toby stepped forward, his eyes wide with questions. So the people, they've been here all along. Yes, the woman replied. We have been waiting for the right moment to return. And you, both of you, have unlocked the secret. The stars, the powder, the notes, they were all part of the journey to find us. You were the ones who had to see the truth. Emma was overwhelmed with emotions. But why us? Why did we have to find you? The elderly woman's eyes sparkled. Because you are the ones who still believe in the impossible. You were the ones who could see beyond the surface. You were the ones who would not give up. Emma and Toby stood there in silence, their minds spinning with all the new information. Everything had made sense in a way they hadn't expected. The town hadn't been lost. The people hadn't disappeared. They had simply moved to a different place, a place hidden from the rest of the world, waiting for the right time to return. As the people of the town gathered around, Emma and Toby realized that the journey they had been on was not just about solving a mystery. It was about belief, about trusting that the impossible could be real, and that there was always more to the world than meets the eye. The stars above twinkled brightly, their light filling the sky. Emma looked up at them, feeling a sense of peace that she had never known before. She realized that the mystery wasn't just about finding answers. It was about the journey itself. The people smiled at them one last time, and the elderly woman spoke again. It is time for you to go back. The town will return, and life will continue. But you will always remember this place, and you will know the truth. With that, the world around them began to fade. The soft golden light disappeared, and Emma and Toby found themselves back in the town square, standing in the quiet night. The stars above were brighter than ever, and the town was no longer empty. The streets were alive with people, their faces full of joy and relief. Emma and Toby smiled at each other, knowing that they had uncovered the truth. The people had returned. The town was awake again, and everything was as it should be. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.